All right, everybody, welcome in here to TrendingPolitics.com, our very first live stream interview that we've ever done here on Trending Politics, because we normally do a daily broadcast every single day at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. But today I've got a very special guest, and I'm going to be introducing him here in a second. But I want to welcome everyone for coming on in, bringing in everybody. I'm really glad to have you guys all on here. Welcome in, you guys. Super stoked to have you guys here. We've got a lot of people jumping on. And we're going to get started here in a minute. So my guest today is a social media, pro-Trump social media star and Air Force veteran. We've got Topher here on the line. Topher, how's it going, man?
What's going on, everybody? Merry Christmas.
All right. Yeah, as many of you guys know, Topher's got his Christmas in July theme going. Topher, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so real quick, everyone, the reason why I have the Santa hat on is because I was kind of in a slump, and I feel how America has been shifted into this downward spiral and just whole attitude towards America. I figured to make politics fun again and just celebrate Christmas in July, and that was just to help lift spirits. Christmas is one of my favorite holidays, and I thought what better thing to do than to sing Christmas songs and come together like Christmas usually does. And I also wanted to show people that you can create happiness when you want to. So you don't have to wait for someone to tell you to celebrate Christmas or love someone. You can do it whenever you want to. So that was the whole story behind it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I actually never heard you talk about it from that, because I mean, I saw your Christmas in July theme on all your videos, but I'd never seen you articulate. I've never seen the video where you talked about that. I actually really, really love that, man.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah, of course. So I've actually interviewed Topher before. We had a really good chat, but it was not live. I didn't have a better setup. I didn't have good lighting. I didn't have good audio. But now we're here. Now we got a much better setup. And the reason why I wanted to bring Topher on here, everybody, is because him and I are both really active on TikTok. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy, but we're actually, some of the conservative voices that really push the pro-Trump message on TikTok. And Topher here has well over 500,000. How many followers do you have now on TikTok, Topher?
530,000. That's just off my main account.
Yeah, so he's got two accounts. He's basically approaching 550,000 total subscribers on both accounts. And he was just actually suspended for 7 days from posting. Now, when is your ban, or when is your suspension up on TikTok?
It said the 29th, but usually that means you can't post until the next day. So I'm thinking the 30th before, Wednesday, today's Tuesday. So Thursday before I can post again. But I'm still posting on my backup account, so follow me there.
Okay. All right, cool. So it's been less than a week. So I'm actually going to put up his social media handles right here, because he's all over, guys. So it's going to be TopherTownMusic. He's going to be he's on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, basically all with the same names, right? I mean, TopherTownMusic everywhere, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. So hey, real quick before we get into our story, I'm sure there's a lot of people here who haven't seen our first interview. So do you want to just give a quick one more introduction about who you are? Because we got a lot of new people coming in here. So what is your story getting into the world of politics and then wanting to speak your mind in a pro-Trump manner online?
So I'm from Mississippi, grew up in Mississippi, currently residing in Mississippi. I did 6 years active duty Air Force as a cryptologic language analyst. And after I got out, I could continue to just pursue my passion in business and music. So eventually got to the point I was on TikTok. I just got irritated by people, spreading misinformation. And because of that, I got on there and started to speak truth, or at least fact check people, because they don't do that on TikTok as often. So I started doing that, started getting a little traction. And as I got traction, it encouraged me that people actually like what I have to say. Because I'm so used to being a black conservative, being a black Trump supporter, you're kind of like, maligned. So they don't want to do nothing with you. They don't want to have anything to do with you. So then you just get, you don't want to do it anymore. You want to actually fit in with your family. You don't want to be outcast. So you just kind of conform. And I eventually said, no, I'm not conforming anymore. This is ridiculous. Our country is going down the drain. So that right there, I said, hey, if you can die for your country, why can't you die for your beliefs? I said,
Yeah.
that makes absolutely sense. So that's why I started to speak out and become more boldly about my values, my tenets and all that stuff. But after I did that, it kind of just grew pretty fast, and then pretty much became a household name and face for the conservative movement on TikTok. So thank you to all
Yeah.
my supporters who always are sharing my videos, all the people
Yeah.
we have red pilled. It's been a fun experience.
Yeah. Yeah, what I really like, everyone watching, what I really like about what Topher does is that he's not divisive. He doesn't sit there and necessarily attack the other side. It's always very fact driven. It's something I need to learn from a little bit, but it's always very fact driven. It's always, hey, well, here's what the story says, and here's what the facts are. Like, let's talk about it. And so you always do a really good job of pointing that out. But I'm really glad you were able to give that introduction now. So now,
Appreciate it.
having said that, being that you're not divisive, being that you do always post about the facts. You were recently just suspended for 7 days. Now, you said that's probably going to be up on the suspension is going to be back up on Thursday or so. You'll be able to post again. Can you kind of tell us? You were in the middle of a video series. What was it about? It is a very sad story, but we got to bring truth to it because there's a lot of people telling certain lies about it in order to push a certain narrative. So we got to kind of squash that here. So I want to talk about the series that you were going through, and then I also want to know the video that actually did it for you, and then we'll continue the conversation there.
Okay, so I was on a series that was, well, pretty much just reading off this article that Courier Journal had. I think they're based out of Louisville. They had written about the biggest seven myths around Breonna Taylor case. So I went and looked at it because I already knew from other sources kind of the truth, but I found something that's just kind of put everything in order for me, so it made it easy to present to the audience. So I was in the middle of that, and I would stop and I guess confront those that would say something, and I would correct them before I continued the series. But it was a series of 7 videos, and during that series, I brought up one which was the actual warrant. So the actual search warrant that the officers use, and one of the biggest myths is the fact that Breonna Taylor was asleep, or she wasn't on the warrant, right? So I showed where her name was on the warrant. They actually had her address and pictures of her apartment to prove that her house, her car, and her individually was on the warrant. A lot of people still to this day believe that she's not. And because of information like this, we get a lot of people upset, and they believe the justice system isn't working because they believe that this is true. But if people will realize that, all this is true and they understand where the lies are coming from, we probably won't be as upset or out here saying arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor, right? So I actually think because of misinformation, people start to really believe in systemic racism. People really start to believe in, just the high probability of white on black crime or police brutality, even though the data doesn't support it whatsoever. They're fixed on that reality. So this is why I made it my job to come in here and just present the facts. I mean, if you're gonna be mad at me, be mad at the facts. I'd rather you be mad at the facts than to be mad at something you thought happened.
Yeah.
That's pretty much why I do what I do.
I actually really like the way you put that, because if you're not doing any personal attacks or any attacks necessarily on the left, all they can attack is the facts, and then it gets less personal that way. And I'm sure you still get some negative comments or whatever. It's going to happen, but I really like that philosophy about it. So for for people not familiar, can you just maybe give like the overview of that whole case, exactly? Now again, what the facts are pointing to, and so what the facts tell us happened that night with the death of Breonna Taylor, and then maybe a couple of the biggest, I guess, lies that are being spread about it in order to push a narrative, because of course it's being politicized. So let's kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, so everyone know about Breonna Taylor. She was 25, I believe. 20, 25, 26, one of them. Don't quote me.
Mid-20s. Okay.
20s. She went up and the whole thing happened when the local I forget the police force. So let's say Louisville Police Department, they went out and executed a search warrant, and from what everyone was being told, it was for her ex-boyfriend, and when they executed, she died in her bed. So from what everyone was being told was someone or the police department executed a warrant on the wrong house, and then while they executed on the wrong house, they shot a lady 8 times while she's sleeping in her bed. And this lady was a award-winning EMT. So this was everything that was being put out there. So
That's the
everyone's, of course,
story that was pushed. Yeah.
right. So of course, everyone, if that's the story, would be upset, right?
Yeah.
Innocent person shot in the bed, didn't have a chance to
Yeah.
defend themselves, and of course, this was all to push, banning no-knock warrants, which they have in that county, thanks to the Breonna Taylor law. But the sad thing about it is that wasn't even a no-knock. They didn't even do a no-knock. They had the permission to execute one, but they downgraded it prior in the briefing to knock and announce. So they knocked and announced. So one of the biggest myths was that they never announced themselves and they never knocked. There's tape of the statement given by Kenneth Walker, the boyfriend who actually ended up shooting the police officer. He had given confession saying, yes, he heard knocking at the door. But he said he don't know if he heard anybody. He said if he did hear, he said even if he, well, he can't confirm nor deny if he heard anyone. He said there was a long hallway and they was on the opposite end. So if you was speaking at the door, you probably couldn't hear anybody. So the myth was that they never knocked and they never announced, and the neighbors testified saying they never heard anyone. So based on Kenneth's testimony, confession, I don't think any neighbors could have heard him, because if they all live in the opposite end of a long hallway, you're probably not gonna hear the police outside. Especially if they're not outside your door.
Yeah.
So taking it back, what I'm about to say about that? Taking it back to that, they end up arresting him, and they shot. I forgot how many times they shot, but they fired into the house because they were returning fire for Sergeant Manley been shot in the leg, and they returned fire and they stepped back, and she pretty much bled to death. And they was trying to say they didn't want to save her and all yada yada yada.
Yeah.
They said they never found drugs in the apartment, so that's like, of course, it was a botched search warrant because they never found drugs, and they was looking for drugs. And if they had the guy, their main suspect, arrested before, right? Because that was another myth that they already had the main suspect arrested, so why execute the warrant in the first place?
Right.
But that misperception comes from the fact that they didn't know she was on the warrant. Like, just because I captured the main suspect don't mean you're still not a target. It's like, search warrant is for every person listed on here. There's not like they're trying to get everybody. So they went in there and still conducted everything. Like I said, in the process, her boyfriend ended up shooting the officer, and that was pretty much how everything went down. And then I think Attorney Crump, who has covered cases like George Floyd and other bigger civil rights cases, and he came out just pretty much spread false tales. Just came out and said, they botched the search warrant. She wasn't even on there, and just all kind of stuff that pretty much the news took with and ran with. And so because of that, a lot of people believe that she was innocent. They keep saying that, justice for Breonna Taylor. And in my head, when I hear all these things, I'm just like, what is your evidence for this? And what does justice mean in this case, right? So just because someone dies does not mean someone should go to jail. I said we see this all the time. Parents leaving the child in the car, and child end up dying from the heat or whatever. They don't go to jail for the most part. So there's a lot of people that just because someone dies because of your actions doesn't mean you go to jail. So they want criminal charges and want them to go to jail because they think the officers, killed her. And since she was, not the one who shot the gun, then she died, from crossfire, and they should be charged with those charges. But once again, my thing is the officers fired in self-defense. I mean, it's clear as day. That was shot. He has the bullet hole to prove it, and it was a serious injury, and that's one of the reasons why they backed up, because he knew it punches femoral, and he was bleeding out pretty rapidly, so they kind of retreated because of that as well. But it's one of those times, like, it's very natural for someone to return fire, and the reason why what shocked them as well is because she was a soft target, So I'm pretty sure they was thrown off when they went in and got fired upon. So that's just some of the stuff. I mean, we can go into more detail, but that's pretty much the
exactly. So what they're basically saying is that she was just sleeping there and was shot. But what you're saying is that there was crossfire to begin with, and she got caught up in the middle of it as she was trying to flee.
Well, I don't know if she was fleeing, but they both was in the hallway. So I don't know if I doubt she was fleeing. I think she just kind of stood next to him at that time, to the ground. But so that's pretty much the story, man. That's
So
And
now, so I actually we having a lot of people in the comments saying I didn't know that her name was on the search warrant.
yeah,
So that right there is a lie that has been pushed so much that naturally, even people in our comments who do their research, they weren't told that. And so
yeah.
that's the very video that you got suspended for. Now, do you think now TikTok, they didn't give you a reason at all? Is that right?
No, TikTok. I've been banned. Well, not banned, but I have been banned before. That was back in April. But I've broken, so not many, but of course, over and over community guidelines. And every time I try to appeal, and let's say I win some of them, but I don't even know why I won. And then if I do, appeal to some and I don't win, they never give me the reason or specifically what I violated. They don't say the entire video was bad. They don't even tell you what portion, right? Because
Yes.
sometimes maybe you flashed the accidental picture, or maybe you put
Yes.
something up that you just don't know that you did,
Yeah.
but you don't know. So therefore, you continuously break the guidelines, and I feel like they leave it vague like that, so they can abuse their power
I
and
agree.
suppress certain users. So
Yeah.
my thing is, if they truly wanted to be transparent about their ways they send down punishment,
Yeah.
I would gladly accept it if they go ahead and create a way for us to learn, right? Because I don't want if I
Yeah.
know I can't do something, it's one thing, right? It's one
Yeah.
thing for me to expect. You say something, I expect it to be a way and say, cool. But it's another
Yeah.
thing for me to be like, wait a minute, I'm doing what you told me to do, and it's still not enough. Or if
Yes.
this is what you want to do, let me know. I'll go to another app. Just they don't do
Exactly.
nothing like that. So
So that's the thing. We've here at Trending Politics, we have experienced that as well in terms of, hey, we're going to slap you on the wrist, but we're not going to tell you exactly what you did. So Facebook one time banned one of our pages, and they said, it's because you posted an egregious image. Now, we never post anything egregious, but they said we did. So I said, okay, can you please tell me what the image was? And they said, we can't be specific. And I said, well, why not? It's kind of like if anyone on here is watching and they have children, if the child does something bad, imagine a child, the parent says, hey, you're grounded for a week. And the kid says, well, what did I do? No, I'm not going to tell you what you did, but just don't do it again. It's like what do you expect us to do? Now, we can theorize. So let's say that because you posted the actual warrant, maybe they could say, well, it had personal information on it, or maybe it was an official document or something. But there's two problems with that. Number one is that this information is public. It's out there. Number two, unfortunately, she has passed away. Either way, I guess it's still personal information or whatever. But still, it's like, if it was that you were posting someone's personal information, then tell us. Then tell
right.
us, because what if it wasn't that? If it wasn't personal information, then in the future you might do something else that you did in the video. I mean, it's just like I guess I don't understand that logic is what I don't understand.
Yeah, man. I've learned to come to grips that there's really no logic to be learned or understood.
That's
Um,
true. Yes.
it's just the fact that if it doesn't fit their narrative and they're trying to help some other people out, then yeah, I think they're just gonna ban it. Period.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to deal with that bias.
Yes, and we have to deal with that bias all over is what we have to do. So we're going to talk about a couple different things. So if anyone's watching and you guys are here on TikTok, then he's going to be back within the next. Now he does have a backup account, so search TopherTownMusic 2.0. Is that right? Your backup
Yep.
account.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So if anyone is on here on TikTok, TopherTownMusic 2.0, and then if you guys want to follow him on any other form of social media, it's right down there on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, TopherTownMusic. But we're gonna keep talking about some other things. So first of all, I want to tell you guys, we're gonna talk a little bit about this, about something that's going on. You guys, I talked about it a lot this week so far, and I'm going to put it here in the spotlight. So it's going to be up here on the upper third corner. If you guys go to trendingpolitics.com, there's been a GoFundMe that has been launched for Bernal Trammell. So as we guys all know, if you guys haven't, so it's on the top left corner here on trendingpolitics.com, or if on your mobile device, it'll be the very first article that you see. But basically, a GoFundMe has been started for Bernal Trammell's family. Bernal Trammell was a 60-year-old Trump supporter who was tragically shot dead in front of his business in Milwaukee. Very sad. Now, to be totally transparent and clear with everyone, is that they still have not caught the suspect. So we still don't know that person's background information. We still don't know a lot of things about the suspect. So we cannot fully say that it was politically motivated. However, I have been talking to some locals in the area, and they say that, his political beliefs were not only well known, but they caused a little bit of a stir. They said that, there are times where he has been followed around town. The local writers have said that people would follow him around town sometimes just to kind of mess with him. So again, we can't say for sure if it was politically motivated. Now, he's very vocal, and it happened right in front of the store where he held signs, but we can't stoop to the level of the left where something happens and they immediately just say, all right, let me put my hat on. This is exactly what happened. Like, let's rise above that. But at the very least we could do, guys, the locals in their community have started a GoFundMe. So guys, please reach out. Go to the top article on trendingpolitics.com. That's where the GoFundMe is going to be found. And help out with anything you can. Even a little bit helps, because we wouldn't want his family going through not only a tragedy, but any economic problems as well. I mean, we all know that, funerals and stuff, they can be very expensive at times, and it's a very sad thing. So I want to talk a little bit about that Bernal Trammell case with you, but I want to lead to a couple different topics. So you and I, like I said, we both do a lot of things on TikTok, and what we find is that whenever someone who is a black person dies outside of the hands of the police, everyone on the right always seems to, and we're going to get into this, but we basically call out Black Lives Matter. And we're like, hey, what about this person's black life? And then they always come back at us and say, look, right now our movement is only focused on the black lives basically taken at the hands of police, or injustice is what they'll say. But now the problem, and I talked with you, Topher, earlier today on the phone about it, and we'll get into the discussion. So I want you to talk a little bit about, because now Black Lives Matter has shifted. They've said, look, we're not responsible for any random black person that gets killed, or a child that gets killed in a crossfire, or black on black violence. We're not touching that. So can you tell me what you were telling me earlier about why you think the left are at times marketing geniuses with the way that they word things or name things? So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was telling Clayton that the people that push the movements, the agendas, I told them, the slogans we hear all the time, go back to pro-choice, because they pigeonhole you into the pro-choice, word every time. It's like, and then you got love is love, which was big when we was going against, the DOMA Act and everything. And then now you got, what is it now? Black Lives Matter, right? Yeah. It started in 2013. The founders have pretty much told everyone they're trained Marxists, and matter of fact, the symbol is from, Karl Marx himself and the movement. And also, if you go to their tenet, read their mission statement, it says they're here to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family, which is the number one issue within the black community anyway. Which that statement alone should prove that it's anti-black and not about.
That logic is just like really baffling to me, because it's almost like, hey, we're going to be here to stop obesity, but we also know that the number one cause of obesity is eating too much, not exercising. It's almost like people like you and Candace Owens and so many people on the right talk about the need for that nuclear family, and they're saying, hey, we're going to just do away with it.
Yeah, it's because that's what they do. They know that, we understand not just logically and, proven. We understand on a biblical level that the Father is very important. So and that's how everything flows down. God, and, you got the, husband, wife, and children. That's kind of how things flow. And it's proven, right? So we can look at the rise of violence, the rise of crime, the rise in poverty rate. I mean, as far as how many people are there. And we can see that right now when we look at the trend from the 70s until now, and as fatherless homes went up, poverty and everything went up because of the same thing. So it's very important to have the parent and the mother there with the children and married, right? In a marriage. But yeah, man, I get it all the time, and I told him when you say Black Lives Matter, right? Just itself, like Black Lives Matter, just so happens to be the name of the organization. So when you
Yes.
say you don't like Black Lives Matter, people flip that and say, "Oh, you don't like black
Yeah.
people, huh?"
Exactly.
So they're building it to where if you disagree with the name of the organization, you also
Yep.
disagree with the sentiment that black people
Yep.
lives don't matter. So I always make that distinction when I'm having an argument or I'm get offering criticism to the movement or the organization per se. I always be
Yep.
like, look, I do not mess with the organization. It's evil. It's anti-black. But the
Yep.
movement itself, which is still included in the All Lives Matter, I agree with. Yes,
Yep.
Black Lives Matter. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think all Black lives matter, not just the
Yes.
ones that have died at the hand of the
Right.
police. So,
Yes.
but they do that, and then when they go and say we're focusing only on police brutality, they still do other things, and this is how they get you. So when you
Yeah.
say what they're doing, once again, you say Black Lives Matter, and you say, well, I don't agree with it because I think all Black lives matter. And so why aren't you in Chicago? Why are you not, Planned Parenthood trying to shut that down and all the
Yep.
abortions? Then they break it down, and say, well, we're only against police brutality.
Yes.
So they trick you into only, you having to support the organization because of the name, but also you can't criticize the organization because they're not focusing on every black life. And I
Exactly.
tell people, you just got to understand what they're doing this, and they do this on purpose. And I said, I don't understand what to write at. Maybe we're just too honest and we don't have time of deceiving people. But they come up with these names, and you really can't fight with it. And I tell
Yes.
people all the time, that's kind of how Planned Parenthood and other organizations that had
Yep.
had a makeover. Because before it was Planned Parenthood, it was America's Birth Control.
Yes.
America's Birth Control a little bit more direct, right? Sounds like you're trying to
Yeah.
control.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
Planned Parenthood
Exactly.
makes it sound like I'm
They
a
sound like.
parent,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
things
So.
like that, man, the left has been great at.
Yeah, and so when we were talking on the phone earlier, everything you just said. So I had this epiphany yesterday, right? It's like, okay, the name Black Lives Matter is so broad, right? But
Right.
then when you take their name literally, because you hear the words Black Lives Matter and you go, hey, Black Lives Matter, cool. Oh, well then, hey, why didn't you focus on this? Then they say, no, their focus is narrow. So the name is broad, but the focus is narrow. But here's the kicker, is that then they weaponize the name against us in a broad fashion. So like you were saying, whenever we want to wonder about other Black lives, they go narrow. And then whenever we criticize them as just an organization, they go broad with it. And they say, oh, I guess you don't care about all Black lives. Actually, there's so many viral videos out there of, these leftists thinking that they get us. They go, wait a minute, guys, you keep telling us all lives matter, but Black lives are included in all lives. So what you're saying is Black lives matter? And we're like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what we mean. So they're trying to weaponize us and say Black lives, that we don't think Black lives matter. So a lot of people on their side don't even understand. Like a lot of people on their side get confused with how broad the name is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so they weaponize it against us, and it puts us in this no man's land. And furthermore, they narrow and expand it when they want, right? So right now, after George Floyd death, you criticize anyone else and they say, hey, it's about police brutality. And that's what they focus on. But then, so let's say, when Ahmaud Arbery died at the hands of two white civilians, right?
Mm-hmm.
They also covered that because then they say, hey, it's also racial injustice. And racial injustice, you could say whatever. And you and I were talking about this earlier. Now, I want to ask someone who's rational. I do know this one lady who is very rational in Black Lives Matter. She's the one who helped promote some stuff for Bernal Trammell. She's local to him, so I'm very respectful to her. I want to ask her this question. If Bernal Trammell, now it appears that he got killed by an African-American man. That's the suspect they're going after, so we can't say for sure. But let's say he was killed by a white man. But if a Black Trump supporter is killed by a white man, would Black Lives Matter then put that under their umbrella of racial injustice? What do you think?
No. I
Okay.
always tell people within the black community, we've realized ourselves that black conservative or black Trump supporter lives don't matter. They wish us death. They wish us, a speedy track to out of this life.
Yeah.
And nothing we do can, I guess, salvage our worth here on earth. At least in their perspective, they just like, man, get these guys out of here. So no, I was saying earlier, if that would have been me, right? If that would have been me that was shot down, gunned down by a white liberal, they could have came up and shot me in the face, and there would have been black people out there saying, well, that just proves that what we're saying we're right. That they don't really
Yep.
care about you. We care about you, but you
Yep.
don't agree with us. So that means you don't care about yourself.
Yep.
But you're also agreeing with the enemy, and then when you die by the enemy, it's just, but once again, proven. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy to them. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, look at that. Yep, we knew it. Can't trust white people, and we try to warn them, and there he go
Yep.
dead. And which bothers me is because I have a 94% chance dying for somebody that look like me, but because that little 6-5% is somebody else, then it's kind of like, oh well, that's the thing we need to worry about. I was like, no, man. I tell the people all the time. I was like, and just like Trammell did, I mean, it proved that we're more likely to die by our own than any other racist or white person, period. And I know this because he was a black Trump supporter. And like I just said, they don't care about us. They will take us out. I will guarantee you there will be a black person that takes me out before it be a white person. And just because I am on the right side of the political spectrum.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
weird weird it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing that they push. And someone in the comments got me thinking, because they said, at first maybe they started with, and maybe they didn't start with good intentions because they are the Marxists or the founders are Marxists. But here's my big point, is that if they wanted to focus on just police brutality or most police brutality, now that's, again, they open and close it depending on what's going on in the news cycle. But if their name would have begun as justice for Black lives taken at the hands of the cops, they probably wouldn't get that much criticism.
Well, also, they feel like they wouldn't get that much support either.
Exactly. Well, it's also not easy to put on a sign. It's also not as fun to chant. Justice for Black people taken at the hands of police. Like, it's not as catchy as Black Lives Matter. And again, like you and I discussed, they can't take that and make it so broad to call everyone racist, because instead of creating a movement that everyone can agree with, can we all agree that, yes, of course we want justice for anyone killed wrongly at the hands of the police. Like, yes, I think we all want justice for that. We want justice for everyone that happens to. But hey, if you guys want to focus on that segment, then hey, then go for it. Show us some evidence. Show us what's going on, and we'll stand with you on that point. But to say to change often about, hey, it's good, it's just about police brutality, and then in racial injustice, which they say racial injustice, but now that can't include any black on black violence. It can't include
Abortion,
children taking.
Yeah,
exactly. It can't take poverty. Poverty, and then I also can't take, like for instance, this Bernal Trammell case, right? So all of the deaths that happen under their umbrella are things they can politicize. But like you and I said, is that it would be, let me figure out how to say this, is that if Bernal Trammell was killed by a white liberal, would they say it's racial injustice? I don't think so. I don't think there would be a march if he was killed by a white person. And that's why people always call him out, like, wait, why are you guys politicizing his death? Trust us, we can't do any better of a job politicizing a death than the left suddenly saying that statues are racist, right? I mean, 3 months ago, nobody's wanted to take down these statues. 3 months, the high school that I went to had to change their name because of George Floyd.
right.
And furthermore, Aunt Jemima. Like,
Okay.
I mean, you can't, so and here's the last thing I'll say about this as well is that the reason why we're speaking up so loudly about this is because the media isn't going to be on our side. With George Floyd, it was wall-to-wall coverage. Well, I looked on CNN.com, and guess what? There's not one article on the homepage about it because they don't want to focus on it. They don't want to focus on it. And so, so what is your response to that in terms of like how the media is just kind of, I mean, of course, there are articles, so nobody quote us. There are articles on it, I'm sure, from publications on both sides. But the fact is that it's not this blitzkrieg of coverage and then sudden, outrage, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so it was one of those things, like I call it the soft bigotry of low expectations. So if we go look at the black community killing each other, people don't want to bring that up because it's almost acceptable. It's like that's expected. Why bring up that 94% of black people kill black people and we're killing each other at a higher rate than any other race? So why bring that up? They went through slavery. They had all this systematic racism that put them in this situation, and because they was in this situation, they don't know no better. And so when they're killing themselves, we shouldn't bring that up because white people kill themselves too, but it's nowhere near black people kill themselves. But there's still that wiggle room. I'm just like, bro, we gotta stop this. We should be held to a higher standard. No amount of history is gonna make you hate yourself in that form and fashion, right? It's like we're literally killing ourselves as if nothing matters. And yes, some people want to blame it on proximity. I said, dude, that got nothing to do with it. What does proximity have with me stealing a TV? It's like it's a lot of stuff that don't make sense. I'm like,
yeah. Or they'll say things that make sense like that, and then they'll kind of twist it to where you can't. Again, they're geniuses at not letting you be able to argue with them without them saying either you're racist or, instead of us, being really concerned that a beating heart is inside of a woman's body and they want to stop that beating heart. Hillary Clinton even said all the way up until the day before the woman gives birth, that child does not have constitutional rights. So Hillary Rodham Clinton is saying that if the child, this kind of makes me sick, but if the child could be born a day later, that's still, oh man, I can't even say it. It's just, I don't understand the humanity in that, but the same people who do that, they call it pro-choice. I'm sorry, but if you're going to abort a baby a day before it's supposed to be born, that's not a choice. That's, in my mind, murder. I'm sorry. It just is, right? And so, but they're geniuses at using, not all the time, obviously, they're not genius, but the way that they brand it is kind of brilliant in a way because you can't argue it without them calling you out in a big way or calling you out with racist. Now, that word racist has lost so much of its power over the last few years, And so now the last thing I want to talk about is you and I were discussing this as well, but the publicist for Black Lives Matter, or the name writer for Black Lives Matter and pro-choice should have really consulted with the people who came up with defund the police. Yeah. Because now they're trying to backtrack it and they can't even agree on what they mean. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, no, I literally mean to defund the police. But then you have some people saying, no, it doesn't mean to defund the police. So the English language apparently doesn't matter anymore because defund the police doesn't mean defund the police. I don't know how that works, but they'll say it just means to redistribute some of those funds to other programs. So can you talk about that, what you've seen, what you've talked about on your social media in that topic?
Yeah, so of course, defund the police. This is another reason how I know the organization is anti-Black. The people or the community that needs the police the most is the one with the highest rate of crime, and I mean violent. It's like, it's Black people right now. And I'm not saying we're more or less than, but it's just stats. It's facts, okay? We can at least address the facts. Whatever their reasoning is, we can go into detail. But I still, once again, believe it's the absentee of the father. Now, so yeah, when they say stuff like that, it just get me thinking, man. And I was just like, man, I don't, I get it, but then again, it just ticks me off when they get to that point, man. Yeah. I don't know, man. As far as letting everybody know, I think I made a couple TikToks. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's just interesting because again, this is another thing that the left can't even agree on. So, you have people in Minnesota or Minneapolis saying telling the mayor, no more police. Literally, they said, we don't want police. And then he gets shouted down by the angry mob when he says, I'm not for the abolition of the police force. But then when we post those videos, you have people saying, well, we just want to redistribute some of the funds. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But either way, we see what's happening in Portland. We see what has happened in Seattle. In Portland right now, the left has now flat out said, hey, it's a myth. Jerry Nadler said, it's a myth what you guys talk about violent protests. It's a myth, but we can see the people throwing fireworks, Molotov cocktails at cops, burning federal buildings on fire, but somehow it's all peaceful. They're even tweeting out saying, peaceful protests escalate. Really? Really? That's what you're going with? People are standing out there with AK-47s. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. So, real quick, we don't want to say open carry is not violent, right?
Yeah.
I guess I just before someone take that around with, it's like wait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess what the videos I saw of the altercations that has happened with them, what I mean is that they were clearly not, they did not intend to be peaceful, at least from what I saw. But yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. But the video still get chopped up anyway, so we're good.
Yeah, of course, right. We'll show them this video. But yeah, so that's what I was gonna say, man. As far as we could talk about Garrett. I think it's his last name, Garrett. He was a Air Force veteran who, 28 years old, just died in Houston, Texas, this past weekend. He was a BLM supporter. He was out there protesting. First of all, why are you walking in the street at the middle of the night? Which I know you don't have a warrant. I'm not a warrant, but license to do so at night, because you got to go get one of those permission from the police department. But they didn't do none of that. They out there walking in the middle of the street, 10 o'clock at night, first of all. And then a car turns, and they say the car sped into him. I doubt it. Maybe he took a right turn, didn't see the mob of people right there when he took the right turn. Yeah. I don't know. But when the car stopped, when he realized, I guess it ran into some people or whatever. And then Garrett was one of the people openly carrying that turned around and approached the vehicle, right?
Yes.
He approached the vehicle, and the driver decided to, fire, because I guess they was afraid for their life, given the fact that so many people started to converge on the vehicle. I feel like if you've been looking at news lately, you kind of see what happens when they kind of trap you in vehicles and what they do.
Man, they ravage your car. They bust your windows in. They slash your tire. I mean, it's brutal what they do. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So maybe that person was, kind of like, I'm trying to get out of here. So they fired, and they was able to start speeding off, and then one of the other bystanders shot into the vehicle. So, so when you're talking about peacefully protesting, I haven't really seen that happen as much as I would like. So we peacefully protested here in Mississippi, and nothing bad has happened. And I want to say, if we can do it successfully in one of the most, racially conflicted areas in the United States, I'm sure other places can do it. But the reason why they can't do it is because the leadership doesn't want them to do it. And yes, we can look at the cities that are pretty much burning to the ground right now, pretty much ran by Democrats. They have Democratic leadership. So it's like, I don't understand. Well, I do understand, because I think there's still racists and Democrats part of the KKK and everything. But
yeah, exactly.
So they want the city to burn, because when the city burns, and I hope people learn from Minneapolis when that mayor tried to try to get some money from FEMA, and FEMA turned them down, says no, you have to do it yourself. So hopefully Democratic cities learn from that and realize all this insurance, people say, oh, it's going to be covered or this and that, and the government got to pay it back. No, it's going to come out of your tax dollars in your city. And businesses are going to leave because they don't want to be around places that destroy their stuff. I mean, no one wants to be around that.
Of course. I mean, what business is going to want to rebuild in Minneapolis? Who is going to want to do that? Los Angeles. I mean, come on. I mean, can you imagine Seattle? It'd be financial suicide to want to rebuild in Seattle after the local government just said, well, we're going to let them build their own little country, and sorry for your business. Like, what?
And you know what I hate about that too is they use Black Lives Matter, and I say white liberals, I'm gonna point them out, but they use it to further damage the black community, because they're never burning down the affluent neighborhoods. Every neighborhood you see destroyed is the very own neighborhood owned by minorities or predominantly minorities. Yeah. So why would you destroy something that you say we're already economically challenged in? we're gonna be even more setback if you're destroying those businesses and jobs in our areas. So it's
Exactly.
like even the movement itself and the targets they choose have absolutely nothing beneficial for the black community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the last thing I want to talk about, just real quick, you gave a prediction last time on the on our interview, and I want to do it for our live audience here. You believe that Trump's going to do incredibly well with the black community. Can you just tell us what your actual prediction is in the election for the black community who's vote for Trump, and then kind of just like a quick little summary of like why you believe that, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, so I believe Trump's going to get 20 to 25% of the black vote. I think last time he got 8%, I believe it was something like that.
Yeah, it was
8%.
7 or 8%. Yeah, yeah,
So my goal is, or at least from what I've seen, we have people that came out and become popular since 2016. We've
yeah,
had Candace Owens, Officer Tatum, King Face, Bryson Gray, all these people that have became, Diamond and Silk, and you go down the whole, David Harris Jr. and all those folks.
yeah,
So you go down the list of black leadership coming out and supporting the president. And this is
yes,
after he's been elected. So you got to think, why are these folks defecting from the Democratic Party to vote for this candidate? Like, it
yeah,
must be somebody worth looking into because, for the most part, the black community has been married to the Democratic Party for decades.
yep, yep,
Um, no matter who's running, right? No matter how much they
right,
heard
right,
what the plan is, but we just been voted Democrat. So so now you were looking at all those people coming forth, and because of people, well, I have to say me now, because I've had so many people who tell me that I red pilled them, or now they're becoming emboldened thanks to what I've been saying.
right,
So people like me that's on TikTok that's creating a following and showing people that Trump has done so many amazing things for the black community, and
yeah,
a lot of people want specific things only. They want what did Trump do only for the black community. I'm
yeah,
like, there's nothing that I would want that he only does for the black community.
yeah,
No president, period. I think that's
yes,
very racist to narrow it down to one race and just benefit that race only, solely based on their skin, not based on their intelligence, not based on their skills or abilities, not based on their intellect, just solely on their skin. You cannot get any more racist than that, and that's
that's
why.
very true.
Besides the fact that Joe Biden has said some very racist stuff in the past, but when he
Yeah,
also said with the interview with Charlamagne the God that if you have a problem deciding you want to vote for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
green black.
Um,
Yep,
Once again, narrowing us down to just a thin layer of skin here.
yep, yep,
So I always find issues with that, man. But I've seen people come out, and I think we're going to continue to see people converge and come out because once again, Trump has proven himself time and time again. It's going to be hard for people to sit down rationally, like have a real policy by policy breakdown and say they're going to vote for a Democratic president. There's no way they can do that after looking at all those facts. So that's what the left tries to do is keep us arguing about superficial stuff that's just going
yep,
to distract us. So like, the whole Epstein thing now is like, well, Trump was buddy with him. He was in the photo. So let's look at Trump. Even though Trump has never been listed on any flight log and anything that was put out there was fabricated. And then,
yep,
but ignoring all the other people that have blatantly went there multiple times that are part of the Democratic Party, but they don't want to talk about it because it's all about demonizing Trump.
yep,
So I said this about Trump. Everyone loved Trump. I remember watching Trump in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode. I remember seeing
yep.
Trump on WWE. I remember seeing Trump on what was it, SmackDown? I forget which one it was. But
Yeah, yeah. One at Raw or SmackDown where he had
yeah,
that little
Raw.
storyline. Where he had a little
Yeah.
storyline. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I also saw him on, The Apprentice. So I always loved when he said, "You're fired." Come on, man. Like
Yeah,
who,
yeah,
who
yeah.
didn't like that? So Trump was
Yeah.
very involved in pop culture and he was well liked. And
Yes.
if you cannot tell me that after this dude with that life and then he runs for president and all of a sudden this come to light and they just start demonizing him, that you don't kind of question your head, it's like scratch your head a little bit. It's like y'all knew about this before this, right?
Yep.
If you did, why now? And
Yeah.
then you start realizing that some people just got some politically motivated motives. And so you just gotta
Yeah.
understand. But yeah,
And
man, so
thing,
that's my prediction.
that's awesome, man. So one other thing too about what you said about all these black, like really black leaders in the black community who are not only just saying, "Hey, I support him," but you guys every single day are putting out content that will, debunk some sort of myth or try to change the thinking of the way things have been. And that's been going on for 4 years.
Right.
And I think the real silent majority is the black vote, if you think about it. Now, there's another really popular TikToker named John Dawson. I was talking to him on the phone yesterday, and he says, man, I get messages all the time of people saying, I can't comment on your posts because I will be eviscerated by either family, friends. I can't share your stuff, but I'm with you, man. So if there's this swell of black support for Trump that can't be public without being called God knows what racial slurs out there by the left, who just said that they're not racist, right? Then
Right.
imagine, so not only would it be support for Trump, but in my opinion, a vote to stay home is a vote for Trump. So you have people that maybe they're not on board with the whole Trump thing yet, but they're not on board with the Biden thing and the Democrat Party. I mean, even Stephen A. Smith. Now, I don't know how Stephen A. Smith feels today, but Stephen A. Smith on ESPN said every black person should vote Republican for one election to show the Democrats that they don't have our vote. Well, let's see, man. Like, I mean, you know, and not only, like you said, like Trump is not sitting there saying, hey, black community, I'm going to do this little policy for you and it's not going to benefit anyone else, but he's doing policies that are helping the black community, right? And
yeah, I was going to say,
yeah,
just real quick, one executive order he just passed was the one about where he forced the government to prioritize skill-based hiring over degree-based. And if we look at the population percentage, only 17% of the black community has or have a 4-year degree or higher, compared to like 30% or higher within the white community and Asian community. So this is so we got more skill-based jobs. Therefore, something like this gives us an advantage when we talk about getting hired, you know, then going back and looking at stuff. So yeah, man, I think it's very, like you said, it's not going to be just black people only. It's going to be something that we have been negatively impacted by, right? First Step Act. You know, well, I forgot how many percent, 90% of the first people released were black because, you know, what they was in jail for had to do with, you know, drugs and everything like that. So he was trying to help some people out. So it's, no matter what the president does at the moment, you know, they're going to hide it. They're not going to talk about it. And they're going to find some way to make it look bad, or they diminish the true effect of it. So they'll say, oh, yeah, he passed it, but what? You know, this just gives opportunity for someone else, too. I'm like, I'm not saying I don't think you should remove opportunity from anybody. I think they should always, everyone should have equal opportunity.
And here's the kicker is that his rhetoric, right? So he does things that will help the black, but then he follows it up by directly speaking to the black community and saying, I'm with you and I'm glad that this is helping you. Let's keep it going, right? Like if he was silent, people could say, no, but he's doing things that's helping the black community, but then he's also reiterating it and saying, hey, I know this is helping you guys out. So that's what I think is also just like a huge key right there too.
Yeah, and that's what he got to do, because unfortunately, the media is not going to talk about great things he's done, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, at all, period. we know this, and it's proven that he's probably had the worst negative exposure or stories done about any president before him.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's up to us and Trump to make sure you highlight those voices.
Absolutely, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, everyone watching, thousands and thousands of people have streamed in here throughout the last, almost an hour. It has not felt like an hour-long conversation, man. But it's gone by fast. So everyone, please go follow Topher right here. I believe it is right there on everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. He's everywhere, guys. Please go follow him. He's one of the best pro-Trump voices out there on social media. Please go follow him. Man, I can't wait for you to get back on the platform so you guys can keep sharing that truth. You have a really, really good night, man. Everybody watching, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Make sure to check us out at trendingpolitics.com. Follow Topher every single place on social media, and we'll be talking with you soon, Topher, all right?
Yes, sir. Appreciate that, Clayton.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye.